Thank you very much for your attendance here today and for your continuing coverage of this issue. During the last press conference we had relative to VGTI, I wanted to indicate we're holding this press conference in part because we consider the members of the media an essential partner that will help convey an accurate and timely update to the public. As you are aware, VGTI Florida has been in the process of seeking additional funding and partners from sources other than the city in order to remain in the building that we built for them. On April 27th, this past Monday, VGTI delivered a letter to the city asking for funding that would not only cover the approximate $4.2 million in mortgage debt, but also additional operating funds totaling $21 million over 3 years. As we reviewed their submittal, it became obvious that their attempts have only yielded a strategy that provides an exit out of the city of Port St. Lucie unless we provide $21 million that they have asked for. And while they have been keeping the city informed about progress to find new sources of revenue and partners, they only informed us 8 days ago that they had negotiated an exit strategy out of the city into what VGTI President Richard Joe says is a source in Palm Beach County. Well, I know who it is, and I'm going to give you a clue. And the city begins with a J, and there's 3 names. The first one begins with an F, and the last one begins with a U. While we try to understand the business decision to create an exit strategy, it strikes us as disingenuous and lacking in good faith and commitment. And while we have continued to request the formal ask from VGTI, they gave it to us with only 4 days to review and provide a response. Having discussed this request from VGTI with members of my staff, I will strongly recommend to the City Council at their May 11th, 2015 City Council meeting that we cannot and will not provide $21 million over 3 years for what amounts to 50 jobs with absolutely no guarantee of future success, and to take whatever actions are necessary to recover any and all costs expended to date. Therefore, I say to VGTI, honor your commitments, keep your agreements. A deal is a deal. You have told us that you could make the May payment if you had to. You publicly stated that you could make the May payment. Make that payment, please. Do not turn your back on the city and the great people of Port St. Lucie who brought you here. It will provide you with the necessary time to do what you said you wanted to do, which was to find new partners and sources of revenue to stay in the city of Port St. Lucie. In the event they do not make the May payment, which is due tomorrow, a series of events will automatically unfold as dictated by the agreements we have with VGTI and the trustee overseeing the debt as follows. First, the trustee will provide VGTI with a notification of default and require payment within 30 days and immediately draw down necessary funds from the Trust Indenture Reserve Fund, which is a mechanism to provide a backstop in case the debt is not paid. It's like a security deposit. 2, if payment is not received from VGTI within that 30 days, the trustee will notify the city within 3 days that the city must make the payment. Thereafter, the city has 30 days to replenish the Trust Indenture Reserve Fund. As I have said previously, immediately upon default by VGTI, the city will take any and all actions necessary, legal actions necessary, as recommended by its bankruptcy attorney to protect the city's investment. With respect to the impact of the city of Port St. Lucie, it's obvious that we have another failed economic investment that will have to be absorbed into our general fund. The immediate effect will be a $2.6 million shortfall in our current fiscal year that will be funded through reserves. In addition, staff has been using this scenario as we craft the proposed budget for the 2015-2016 fiscal year. As part of this submittal to City Council, we will provide a series of recommendations on how we address this and all other failed economic investments that altogether now total approximately $12.7 million in annual payments. Furthermore, the city has major concerns as to whether the state is shifting priorities in which they would encourage, through state funding, the movement of one facility to a facility in another county. To assist in answering this question, we will seek assistance from our economic development partners and our legislative delegation that emphasizes, one, the state should not neglect the city's $64 million investment and subsidize VGTI's relocation to another Florida city through their budgetary allocations. This would be unfair to Port St. Lucie and St. Lucie County residents. Two, we ask that any funds being held by and/or are in current authorization bills at the state level be redirected to the city to protect the city and state's investment in that building so we can reposition the building to bring jobs and economic benefit to the city of Port St. Lucie. And three, we will be calling Representatives Harrell, Magar, and Lee, as well as Senator Joe Negron, to assist us and take action to protect the great citizens of the city of Port St. Lucie. And finally, this was supposed to be a partnership, and I call upon Mr. Doug Calder, the Executive Director of Development and Communications for VGTI, to continue that partnership and honor your commitments. The city and state went all in for you, but it appears from this photo taken an hour ago that you're already packing up and on your way out. So, your new home must have already been ready for you to move in before you delivered the formal ask to the city. Partnership indeed. Thank you. I have also a PowerPoint presentation, which is a public document that was submitted to the City of Port St. Lucie by VGTI at their meeting on May 22nd. This will give you another clue to the answers, the clues I gave you as to where they're going. So if you're interested in it, it's right here for your page. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try and answer them at this time.
So what, the equipment in that building, all that stuff they're moving right now, shouldn't the city just seize it?
We do not have the authorization from the trustee to seize anything at this point. There's equipment that was funded through an OTED agreement that the state provided funding. There is equipment that was funded through the $64 million bond debt, but right now we do not have the authorization to seize any equipment. We will have to deal with that through our legal means.
What will the city do with yet another building?
Well, the same thing we did with the other one. But only this building perhaps is more specific than even the digital domain building. This was created for specific research. It has labs that does extensive research. VGTI will be required to decontaminate the labs on their way out. So we will have to deal with that building in the same fashion that we've dealt with the digital domain building, which means we'll likely have to resolve issues first, the legal issues surrounding this. The state will have to deal with OTED agreements that they have that provided $60 million to VGTI. So we will have to go on another legal route in order to protect our interest and in an attempt to recover the monies that we've expended to date.
Have you contacted FAU?
Pardon?
Have you talked to FAU?
How do you know it's FAU? We have not contacted FAU at this point. We had a preliminary discussion with them perhaps a year ago about the potential of a merger, but we have not been in communication with them of recent.
Jeff, have you talked to anyone from VGTI since Monday?
No, I have not.
And will you hire an international broker to sell this building? Is that how it
I
might
mean,
work?
well, we did table, as you know, at the last meeting, the RFP to do such. I believe that depending on the council's decision and direction, that certainly will be one of the options that we have.
Now, VGTI mentioned it wanted to take a $2.6 million, $2.6 million from an escrow account. Do you know what that account is there for and if they'll have access to that money?
Yeah, it was a reserve that was held by the Department of Economic Opportunity as a part of the $60 million that was provided to them, and it was based on hitting thresholds of employment. We will be seeking that money.
And I guess I was going to ask when they would be evicted, but they're moving out today from what you're saying.
This speaks more words than I can even tell you, okay? This is a moving van that is backed up to VGTI.
If they say they aren't moving out today for some reason, when would the city evict them if they don't make their Friday payment?
Well, we would take all legal actions necessary to remove them from the building. There are requirements that they have to fulfill, however, and according to federal guidelines, they would have to decontaminate the labs. So they will have to remain, they'll have to remove the equipment, they will have to decontaminate the labs, and they will have to get approval from whichever authority guides that type of decommissioning.
Council members, can you weigh in on any of this as far as what comes next for the city, for the taxpayers, for?
I would encourage no other comment other than comments that have presently been made. We have some other things that we need to explore before we provide a thorough understanding to City Council of what our legal rights are, what the next steps are, and to provide them with the information for them to make a serious decision as a total council.
How much will this cost people this week?
How much will it cost this week?
Yeah.
Well, we pay $4.2 million a year. If I had a calculator, I could probably do that for you. But
No, I'm just saying, that starts tomorrow.
yeah, that starts tomorrow. The immediate, as I mentioned, immediately upon non-payment, the trustee, there's automatic items that will happen. And the trustee will immediately, because we have to pay the debt in a timely fashion. So if it's not paid by VGTI, they'll have to take it out of the reserve fund.
How would you describe their behavior at this point?
I'm extremely disappointed. We went into this as a partnership. We went into this with an understanding that they wanted to stay here. This suggests to me that their plans to move were in the works for many, many weeks, even months. And they only told us that they had an alternative 8 days ago. So, as I said, disingenuous probably is the kindest word that I can say at this point.
Jeff, once the money from the reserve fund is taken Friday, if they default, when would the city then have to pay?
Yeah, as I mentioned, VGTI will be given a default notice. They will have 30 days to cure it. If they do not cure it, then within 3 days thereafter, they will notify the city that the city has 30 days to replenish the reserve fund.
And what will the economic impact be of VGTI leaving the area?
Well, obviously, they'll take jobs, okay? And but it's 50 jobs is what they have remaining. They've provided economic impact analysis in the past. I'm not sure that I agree or believe it, but the net effect will be 50 jobs, okay? Now, whether or not they live here, whether they move from here, that's something that I can't tell you. But from my perspective, you know, it is akin to the collapse of Innovation Way.
You know, I was thinking about this earlier with the new veterans nursing facility. Part of why we were able to get that was because of the medical industry being prevalent in this area. Do you think losing VGTI is going to make it harder to continue growing the medical field in the city?
I think that with respect to the Veterans Nursing Home, I think the most important aspect of that was the Tradition Medical Center, along with the research annex that they have. I think that obviously, research and the biotech and research for disease of aging will continue. There are other clusters that are presently in the research industry. That the impact to us is that we have a biotech that's leaving. And I don't think that will strike against anybody's commitment in terms of what we have been able to provide as a home for the 7th Veterans Administration Nursing Home.
Jeff, we've seen VGTI's version of why it's having financial problems. What do you think the problem is there?
Well, obviously, the NIH grant funding has hurt the biotech industry. Although, if you believe reports, it hasn't hurt them as greatly as others. I think that as we looked at it, they had structural issues that they did not have time. Either they did not want to, nor maybe they did not have time to address. You can see that their deficits were decreasing over the last 3 years. But I would suggest that they should have probably taken some advice that we provided them and retained a restructuring expert in order to do an examination of their facility in order to assure us or assure them that not only were they sustainable, but that they could survive. And we made that strong recommendation to them, and they ignored it.
Well, the NIH funding was down only 3% from 2013 to 2014, so it doesn't really sound like a crisis.
I would suggest that if they are telling you that NIH funding was a source of their difficulty, that's probably not the case.
And you mentioned decontamination. They're working with HIV, flu, Ebola there?
Well, my understanding is that their primary focus was on HIV and AIDS. Although I believe that they have some potential DOD grants for unknown research beyond that.
So how difficult is it going to be to clean that building?
I don't know what the regulations are. There must be air quality standards, and there must be other standards that they must comply with before they get the ability to even leave the facility, I would think.
Do you know how long that decontamination?
I have no idea. There are no other questions. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a great day.